Hello and welcome to The Horrible Idea, a podcast about horror movies. I'm Stephanie, and I can take your eyes out of your skull and give them to the dogs to eat.
I'm Jack, and I'm a good boy. I really am. I'm not lying. I'm a good boy.
You better not be.
Don't kill me.
So, each week we pick a scary movie and talk about it. If you have a movie that you think might scare us, hit us up on Instagram at The Horrible Idea. That's HORROR. Or on Twitter at HorriblePod.
This episode we're going to be discussing the 2014, another Persian horror western. A girl walks home alone at night.
Yeah, we're lousy with those Iranian spaghetti westerns.
All right, tell us, give us the facts. Just the facts.
So this was released on January 20th, 2014, I believe, at Sundance.
Yeah.
And it was written and directed by Lily Amirpour. And we've tried to find info on the budget, but it seems sort of unknown. I know they raised over $56,000 on Indiegogo, but the box office was about $628,000.
Yeah, IMDb gave it a 7 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 96, and Rotten Tomato audience gave it a 75, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like this is, again, one of those movies where it's sort of art house indie, and so the critic scores are usually higher than the audience scores. It's not a straightforward sort of vampire flick. Right.
It's also in Farsi, so
yes, that
will keep some people away. But I found it pretty easy to follow, and the director, though ethnically Persian, was born in England and grew up in Miami and LA, and the girl in question, Sheila Vand, was also. She's actually a second generation Iranian American who grew up in LA. So this is a very sort of like Western and Middle Eastern film.
Yeah, and I know I read a couple articles where the director was interviewed, and she said basically like she grew up just obsessed with, American pop culture. So definitely absorbed, and you can tell like the kind of 50s vibes, the James Dean kind of stuff, and I know she was also a big Anne Rice fan, so yeah, you definitely feel a lot of that.
Well, who isn't? I know I am. Or at least I was, until she got into Jesus, and then got out of Jesus, and then started writing really bad books about werewolves. Anyway, so preconceptions. What'd you know about
I will admit, I definitely, when I picked this movie, I was thinking, oh, okay, I'm gonna pick one that's super scary. And I definitely had gotten this one mixed up with another black and white film that came out within the last 5 or 6 years called The Eyes of My Mother.
Oh, okay.
Which is, I believe, a much scarier movie. But I think, and I haven't seen it yet, so who knows. But I enjoyed this one nonetheless. And it is a vampire movie, so it's,
Yeah.
It's horror-ish.
I also got this confused with another movie because I thought it was Let the Right One In.
Yeah. I think is it sweet? The original is Swedish, and it's like Let Me In, I think. I've actually seen both of them, but yes.
In general, I heard this was, like an art film. It was received very well at Sundance. Her second film looks really interesting. I've been meaning to watch it because it sounds batshit insane. It's called The Bad Bunch, and it's like
Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch, and it's like Keanu Reeves with a mustache,
Jason Momoa.
Jim Carrey in like a post-apocalyptic Texas.
Yeah, and this model, Suki Waterhouse, who has like a really interesting face, is like the main
she
character,
seems,
and I think
interesting.
She's also Robert Pattinson's girlfriend. In case we need a male to relate her to, you know.
Every time I hear her name, I keep thinking she's named after the main character in True Blood, but that's different.
That's Suki.
Suki.
It's the child of Suki and PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Right. So this was I liked it a lot. It was interesting not knowing anything going in and then being thrust into this sort of like noir, black and white, foreign film that was just like visually really interesting, very spare, very sort of like
Yeah, and like so it is in Farsi, so it's subtitled in English for those of us who do not speak Farsi or understand it. But it's not laden with dialogue. It's actually like relatively low lift. It's you like feel the vibes more than whatever.
Right. And actually, I've just been sort of doing a little deep dive on Jean-Luc Godard, and which this movie sort of reminded me of a little bit. It reminded me of Alphaville a little bit and some other things. And the girl reminded me of Anna Karina. Just that sort of like dark eye and just like the hair and everything. And and just that sort of like very quiet
dancing around
ingenue.
In her apartment.
Yeah, she was like a yaya girl.
And also just another note. So I read on Wikipedia that the director has actually 30% hearing loss. And so that is why I guess a lot of her films aren't really reliant on really heavy dialogue. Or at least, that's what she has mentioned in interviews, which I thought was interesting.
It also had a very nice soundtrack, which was like
the needle drops are great.
Yeah, cool music that I had never heard. But
yes, I did what's it called, Shazam, whatever it's called, where you play
Shazam.
Find out Shazam. Yeah. And I wrote down a few of the songs. One was called Kabnama by Radio Tehran, and another one was Yarom Bia by Kiosk. I think that's the last song that plays in the movie. But she also mentions Lionel Richie.
Yeah.
And I think the music was used really well in this for sure. And she was a DJ at one point, so I think, she definitely brought some of that to it.
Yeah, it's too bad if they had the budget, they should have had Hello in there. It would have been good. But a lot of stuff I read online compared her and this movie to Jim Jarmusch's stuff. And yeah, I see it, especially Down by Law. That sort of Down by Law is a little more sort of not surreal, but sort of absurd. Like, nothing is explained really, and sort of like the ending is really vague.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think so this came out either the same year or very close to when Only Lovers Left Alive, or
that was 2013.
The Jarmusch vampire movie. So I think they definitely got a lot of comparisons. So why don't we get into the plot breakdown?
All right. I wrote this one too, so let me know if it makes any sense. A lonely vampire, known only as the Girl, stalks the streets of a desolate Persian town. She kills bad men. Arash is a hardworking young man who's caring for his heroin-addicted father, Hossein. Hossein owes money to a drug dealer and pimp named Saeed. The Girl meets Saeed, seduces and kills him, and then Arash finds Saeed's dead body and takes this big suitcase full of drugs and money.
He also, I should note, takes back his dope ride.
Yeah.
Which is like sometime of 1950s, like...
Yeah, it's a cold
beautiful.
whip, as the kids say.
Yeah, that took him 5,000 days to afford or something like that. So Arash takes some ecstasy at a party, and on his way home, dressed as a vampire, because it was a Halloween party, or a costume
Dracula.
party of some sort, he runs into the girl, who takes him back to her apartment. She almost kills him in this very kind of seductive little moment, but changes her mind, and then the two meet up again at a power plant, and almost kiss. When Arash's father Hossein forces a sex worker named Ati to do heroin with him, the girl kills him. Learning of his father's death, Arash asks the girl to leave town with him. He sees his cat in her apartment and knows she had something to do with his father's death, but he decides to leave town with her anyway.
Yeah. That's sort of this, kind of noir ending where they just sort of drive into the like he stops for a minute, he gets out of the car, and then he kind of gets
He's
back
like
in.
debating whether to stay with her or what to do about it. It's a good thing he didn't try to like take her down, because there's no way he would have lasted.
No.
But yeah, so it was, I did like how spare the cast was. There's really only like 5 or 6 characters.
Yeah, except for that party scene, there's like a couple of extras, but
yeah, and the plot is, pretty simple.
yeah. So speaking of the characters, who were your favorite ones? Why don't you start?
So, I definitely loved the girl, the titular girl. She had just like bitchin' makeup. She had a really cool apartment. I liked her little dance moves. I liked that she killed that dirtbag drug dealer. She was great. And though I wasn't like a super big fan of him at the beginning, Arash really grew on me. I think that like the ecstasy being taken in a movie is often done in a very over-the-top way. And I think this was actually fairly subtle. Like, he was kind of like spacey, but he wanted to like hug her, which is a big thing. Like when you're on ecstasy, you just want to hug everybody. And so I think that was well done. And then the other character that I really liked, and I had to find the character's name just by kind of doing Google searches, but I think their name is Rockabilly.
Yeah.
And the character who does the dance with the balloon, that's sort of like an intermission.
Right.
And I just thought that character was really like interesting, has no dialogue, but they're in that opening scene where Arash goes to get the cat and then is like walking back across town. And then they're at the party and then they do the little dance with the balloon. I don't know. I just thought they were kind of like and that's sort of the vibe of like a Jarmusch movie or a David Lynch movie or something. Just like this character that's not really explained, doesn't really have a like, narrative feature, but just adds to the whole vibe of the movie. So those were my favorites. And then I'll let you get into yours, and I think I have some comments about one of yours.
Okay. Yeah, first I'll say Saeed, the drug dealer pimp, with the shaved hair and the tattoo on his head. He had a sick apartment, big TV. He was living the life. I mean, we didn't get to hear him play the drums, but he had a drum set. He just invited girl back, blow a couple of rails, and then just pump a little iron. He's got it made.
So I was like writing notes on my iPad, and I literally wrote on my notes, I said, this guy, and then just a bunch of bullet points. This guy's tattoos, apartment, outfits, facial hair, dance moves, art, music taste, they all suck. And And then just like the moment where he starts like, she's in his apartment and she's been silent this whole time. And he just starts like curling like weights.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud. I was like, she wants nothing to do with you, you disgusting. And he had that tattoo across his throat that said sex.
Sex, yeah.
And
that
I was like,
to me, that meant he was good at sex.
well, I was about to say, this was when I was like, this is Jack's edgelord moment of the week. I was like, Jack's definitely gonna call this guy an edgelord.
No, spoilers, he's an edgelord and there are breasts in this. So, just to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my actual favorite character is also the girl. And I thought she had... The fact that there's very little dialogue, especially from her, she says almost nothing, was really interesting, especially in the scene where she goes to this guy Saeed's apartment, because she's just sort of like looking at him. And the look is, to me, what I like got from her eye acting was like, this guy's a bad person who's going to die, but I'm kind of like entertained by the ridiculousness of this all. And then when she like flashes her teeth and he gets scared, she kind of smiles. And it's really the only time she seems to like enjoy killing someone. She like bites off his finger and it's, there's a little foreplay.
Oh my God, when she bites off his finger, I was like, ah.
And then there's that moment where she whips out her teeth, kind of like Buffy style, and he gets scared, but then she like sort of like licks his finger or something. And he's like, okay, maybe I'm into this. And then she bites off his finger.
He's so simple. He's just like, all right, I'm back in. Like, not at all, but because he's so like hubristic, he's not at all thinking that she's a threat.
Right.
Even when she pops like these fangs out. But yeah, I was very happy that he died early on.
Yeah.
And he was so mean to Ati in the car.
Yeah, that was complicated, yeah.
He's like, you're 30, don't you want to have kids? And then he calls her a hag and like takes all of her money. And yeah. But so the girl is watching that all go down, which I think is part of why she's like, all right, you're going to die.
Yeah. And then she like ends up giving his stuff to Ati later on.
Yeah, she's like an avenging angel to a certain extent.
She is, and then the sort of contrast to that is her scene with the little boy, which I found really interesting. And I didn't get like at the beginning, but to me, what I took away from that scene was like, so there's this little boy and she kind of like...
He's like a street urchin. It's like the trope or whatever.
Yeah, and you see him throughout the movie. He's asking Arash for money and stuff. But so she kind of like follows him and scares him and then sort of like grabs him and
she gets the deep voice.
Yeah, she puts on the vocoder and asks him like if he's a good boy, and he keeps saying yes, and she keeps asking him. And it seemed a little out of character. But
so what I took from it, and I don't know, maybe this is, I took from it like she seems to go after primarily men,
right?
And drain and eat like bad men, and so I saw it as maybe like teach them while they're young, or I don't know. Like,
yeah, no, that's what I wrote. That she's sort of like because, like, she said basically, if you're bad, I'm going to come and get you, So.
Yeah, she's like, I'll be watching you forever.
And I think it seemed like she kind of, like, likes being scary a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and then she also gets her sick wheels from him.
Right,
because he leaves his skateboard behind.
Yeah, she learns, she does an ollie and an impossible into a Mick something. Yeah. She does 360.
Well, so I guess the director is a skateboarder, and she was like the stand-in for some of the skateboarding scenes, which was interesting. Little fact. So, what were some of your favorite scenes in this?
Well, I liked the opening. I liked the beginning. I liked Arash and his car, and just that whole, him in the white shirt was very cool. But
yeah, very James Dean.
Yeah, and I especially liked the whole conceit of, so this guy is dressed like sort of Dracula, and it's a very, like he's just wearing like a black shirt and like he made a cape. So he's wearing a Dracula outfit, talking to a woman who is actually a vampire. It was brilliant.
Yeah. No, it was very, like, tongue-in-cheek. And, yeah. And that was also part of the scene that I was talking about where, someone's on ecstasy, but it's not, like, way over the top.
Right.
You can tell he's on something, but he's not like, oh, I love you, man, or I don't know, something ridiculous.
I like that she pushes him home on the skateboard. She like puts him on the skateboard.
That was very cute. I actually thought that night in her apartment, and then my favorite scene when they go on the little date at the power plant, I thought those were both actually really sweet scenes. Like,
yeah.
I think I wrote in my notes, like, wow, this movie's really sweet for a, vampire Western. But the scene at the power plant I thought was really visually cool. The music that Arash plays, like he turns on the music in his car to play, and then he pierces her ears just like with a safety pin.
Yeah.
Which was intense. And like I really liked when he did it the first time and her like teeth came out because she's like...
It's also kind of like an inversion because like she is like consensually letting him like pierce her skin and make her bleed.
Yeah. And then the sound design also in that earlier scene at her apartment when she like he walks up behind her and she's facing away and then she kind of slowly turns toward him. Mm-hmm. And then she like pushes his head back and so you're like, oh, she's about to like bite his neck or whatever. And then she just like puts her head into his chest instead. And then like the sound comes up almost like a heartbeat, like a thump.
Right, like I thought she was like just like listening to his heart. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it worked on me. It was very like sweet.
Yeah.
So I did not do a 6 Degrees of Cinema because I didn't know anybody in this movie.
What?
Yeah.
Well, you could have went director to her next movie.
That's true.
And then Jason Momoa.
Do you have a pitch of the week?
A rough pitch of the week. I just think we just pick up exactly where we were and do 8-episode Netflix of the buddy movie of them driving cross country. Get a little bit of that Catherine Bigelow's 1987 also neo-Western horror film Near Dark, which is about like a couple of vampires in like a van and they're just sort of like driving around. Really good movie. We should add it to our list. And I know you were looking for women directors.
I do. I like to have them included. And I was really... So I'll be excited for next year when Candyman finally comes out.
Yeah.
Which is directed by Nia DaCosta, and starring one of my husbands, Yahya Abdul-Mateen III. No, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II.
Not his son.
No, he's only the second in line. Second in line for the throne of my heart.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking about little sidebar, but bringing up Catherine Bigelow because of Near Dark, I've spent yesterday trying desperately to find another Catherine Bigelow movie that I love, which is Strange Days, which apparently is not available for streaming anywhere online.
Yeah, no, it's nowhere.
I used to watch it every New Year's Eve because it's about New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I
anyway.
suggested it as a movie for this New Year's.
Right.
And then realized it's literally available nowhere. Like, I think you can get it on DVD secondhand.
Yeah. I tried. They said I would get it by February, which doesn't really help me. So let us compare the girl to some other vampires. Other vampire Nosferatu.
I thought she was cooler than the vampires in Vampires versus the Bronx, for sure.
Sure.
Because those vampires were douchebags. I'm trying to think. So when her teeth came out, they were real, like, quick, and it reminded me of some other vampire movie, but I can't remember what it is now. Maybe it was True Blood.
Yeah, they kind of little switchblade.
Like, and they don't get the weird ugly face like Buffy.
Right.
I
Vampires
always thought that was
did that one too.
Yes. I always thought it was kind of a shame that the vampires had to get ugly. Like, when their
maybe
teeth
only
came out.
ugly to your concept of beauty.
Well, yeah. Because I've always kind of felt like if I were to be like a mythical creature, I'd want to be a vampire.
Interesting.
I just think it's badass. Because you like can live forever and you like look sexy usually, and sometimes you can fly.
You could be PETA.
I'll be 8,000 years old. And then, you have to only be out at night, but that's fine. I'm a night owl anyway. I'm not a morning person. And yeah, I just think it's kind of a dope lifestyle that I wouldn't mind living.
The vampire lifestyle. It is a lifestyle choice. Yeah. We've been talking only about the movies that we've seen in horror vampires, but we brought up Anne Rice, and I think Louis and Lestat are wonderful vampires. Yeah, I just liked her vibe. I like that they didn't get into who she was, how old she was.
Yeah, like kind of the only hint at that maybe is like I read a review, and I guess I didn't really think of this until I read the review, but they said that like all the posters on her walls, they were like it's from her going to these concerts, like Madonna concerts or whatever, through the 80s and the 70s, and because I think she also has the Bee Gees or something, and they were saying like, because she's immortal, she's just been going to like cool concerts forever.
Nice.
I don't know if I got that from the film, but I thought it was an interesting comment.
It is, but also like a 20-something girl might also have those posters.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I have plenty of, posters from movies that came out way before I was born,
Wow, are you a vampire? So. Were you there when Mean Streets came out? That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So I did like the whole visual as well of the chador as, instead of a cape, like a vampire's cape, like she was wearing the chador. So I thought that was an interesting visual.
Yeah, they made it look like a cape sometimes, like she or like made her look like a shadow.
Yeah. I really liked when she was kind of shadowing Hossein on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
When he was walking and she was like matching his pace and turning. And he was like, hey, Hossein, real piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. The complexity of like a person suffering from addiction, but also being a piece of shit.
And like forcing that woman to shooting her
horrible.
up.
That was
I was kind of with him until that. Like I was kind of sympathetic toward him and that works for the plot because that's right before he bites it or, gets bit literally. So it's a good device to turn us against him right before he dies, but...
Besides that scene and the scene with Saeed and Addie in the car, literally all of the violence is the girl killing people, the killing men. There's no real other violence in the movie.
And then we haven't mentioned this yet, but I love that the town is called Bad City.
Right.
I thought that was kind of cute.
The other thing we didn't mention, and I was going to bring it up for my favorite character, is the cat, who is amazing. Apparently the cat actor's name is Masuka, and was not originally written into the script, but the director saw the cat and was so, to quote, was so impressed by his skills, put him into the film.
Yeah, I thought that the cat was cute and is kind of a through line. Like, the cat, he goes in the opening scene to pick up the cat, and I think you're supposed to understand later that maybe Hussein sold the cat, or he got away, or I don't know, something, because he goes into a backyard and, like, takes the cat and walks back across town.
Right.
But so the moment I saw the cat, I had to go to doesthedogdie.com.
Right.
Because I was like, I cannot handle another animal death. And they were like, they assured me, no, the cat is fine. It seems like he's in peril a couple times, but he ends up fine.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of a inside Llewellyn Davis vibe, carrying the cat.
Yeah.
The cat being a through line. The cat sort of like being a narrative device in that when it shows up in the girl's house, it's like, what?
Yeah. That's when he's like, womp womp. You maybe killed my dad, but...
you maybe killed my asshole dad.
But I've got, I'm throwing in my lot with you. All right, let's go.
Got a suitcase full of dope and cash. Let's go.
And my sick wheels.
All right. Final thoughts. Rate and review. Do it.
So I enjoyed this movie. It was not scary at all. I think like the scariest part was maybe like, I was a little worried about what she was going to do to that little boy. I was like, please don't kill this small child. And I was worried for the cat. And her biting his figure off was definitely I had to hide my face a little bit. So I guess I'd give it like a 4. There were definitely some like creepy vibes. But overall, I think it was actually really sweet and really visually appealing. I think sometimes black and white movies can look like, it's a choice. And I think you have to like you have to like do a lot with a little with black and white because you've got to work on the contrast and everything. But like I said, the scene at the power plant was really visually cool. And just some of the shots of her in the Chador just like kind of being creepy or riding the skateboard were really cool. So entertainment factor, I think I'd give it a 8 out of 10. There were like a couple moments where it felt a little slow, but I think the charm of the characters and the visuals kind of carried me through. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't think it seemed slow. The movie like flashed by. Was it like 90 minutes or something? I don't know exact runtime.
It was like an hour 45, I think.
Yeah. Similarly, I really liked the vibe of it. I like the black and white, especially with her sort of striking face and her eye makeup. It made it look very, with the backdrop of the veil. It just made her look like a sort of ghost, and I dug it. And I loved the cat. I liked the car. I like the ending. So, yeah, scare factor, I'll give it like a 2. Actually, I think the scariest parts were like when the father made Atty, shoot up And
Yeah.
and with the kids. So like none of the vampire related things particularly. Yeah. So entertainment factor, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Don't know what just happened.
Nice. We both gave it 8 out of 10. So we're in the hand-holding club if we're using Doughboy's lore, adopting it as our own.
Sorry, not one of
We'll
mine.
come up with our own thing. So, Jack, what are we talking about next week?
Yeah, so next time we're going to do a movie that we were going to do on like the second or third
First,
viewing,
I think it was our
the
first
viewing,
one.
but in watching it, I realized it's such a meta horror movie that we had to see a lot of these movies to sort of understand the tropes that they're playing with. But
Right.
it is 2011's Cabin in the Woods.
Are you going to rewatch it?
Yeah, I'll rewatch it. So review us on Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. We'd really like some feedback. We haven't gotten any. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to make it weird or anything. I'm just saying, nobody's really reached out to us on any social media in any way at all. We're also on Stitcher. If you stand real close to my apartment, I usually play the podcast in the morning after I post it. Don't be scared.
And if you have any interesting facts or thoughts, or if we got something wrong on any of these podcasts, send us a message. Or if you have a suggestion for a movie that's scarier than A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, let us know on Twitter, or you can email us at thehorribleidea@gmail.com.
All right, man. Let's hop in my car. We're going to drive off into the distance.
It only took you 6,000 days to afford it.
I think it was like 2,000, but whatever. All right.
No, it was like 5,000.
Peace out.
Bye.